Welcome everybody to the regular Delray Oaks City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 17. It's 6 o'clock on the nose. Karen, could you please do roll call?
Councilmember Getzelt?
Yes, here.
Councilmember Gagliotti?
Here.
Councilmember Lintel?
Here.
Vice Mayor Clark?
Here.
Mayor Kerr?
Here. All right, everybody's here. We're going to open up for general public comments that deal with matters subject to the jurisdiction of the city and this council that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address, please may do so now. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being discussed. There will be a time limit of no more than 3 minutes. No action will be taken and all comments will be referred to staff. I see Nikki.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor Kerr. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on being reelected to the mayor position and also extend congratulations to Kim Shirley and to Scott Donaldson for being elected to the council, and to acknowledge the outgoing council members and thank them for their community support and their many years of service to Delray Oaks. I have two items that I'd like to bring up. One has to do with the reading of the September 22nd City Council meeting minutes, where City Council, or excuse me, City Manager Pick mentioned that there would be a public workshop in November regarding the realignment of South Boundary Road. And I'm just checking up on that. Wondering what the status of that public meeting is and whether the workshop will be scheduled in November or at some point in the future. So that's a question, I guess, for the acting city manager. And then I'd also like to point out that on November 5th, the California Native Plant Society Monterey Bay chapter met in a mediation session with representatives of Delray Oaks. And although the mediation proceedings are confidential, I would like to say for the citizens of Delray Oaks that it was a constructive meeting, and we look forward to receiving additional information from the city and potentially to a follow-up meeting. But thank you for the opportunity to comment.
I'm sorry, Jeff, would you like to respond to that question?
Absolutely. I would also like to thank the CNPS for the meeting as well, and the willingness to work with us. As far as the South Boundary Road realignment, the initial schedule was to try to have something available for the November City Council meeting. However, with the personnel reassignments and City Manager Pick's leave, the schedule was changed a little bit, and as well as with the pending mediation, we are going to wait and see before we have any type of public workshop, see how that plays out and try and schedule that as soon as possible. Rest assured, however, that is a priority. As soon as we can, we will have a public workshop about the realignment and get as much input from our residents as possible before moving forward past the direction that the City Council has given us regarding any design or moving forward in any way. So that'll happen. It's just a question of when we get it on the agenda. I would assume sometime right after the first of the year.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. I see Doug McKenzie.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. This is Douglas McKenzie reporting from 16 South Cedar Avenue with this month's edition of the 3-Minute Report. In tonight's show, we offer our rebuttal to the comments made by Dennis Allian during last month's City Council meeting in response to our report on the information contained in the 2017-2018 email exchanges between City Manager Pick, the airport's Executive Director Michael Lapierre, and others. Mr. Allian's admission that he participated in a meeting with the airport was refreshingly candid. Quoting Mr. Allian, I'll admit that I was in one meeting with the airport in which they presented their general plan to us. And well, what we were trying to do was just cooperate with them in terms of here's the process. You're not going to get any success doing this, but go ahead. Here's the process. We're just helping you understand the process, unquote. However, and not surprisingly, Mr. Allian did not address what the emails show quite clearly. The many meetings over the course of several years between Mr. Pick and Mr. LaPierre, and many others concerning construction of the road. Unanswered by Mr. Allian is the question, if all the meetings were about process, how come so many? Mr. Allian alleged no collusion 3 times in his comments, quoting, "There was no collusion on the part of Dino Pick or any members of the staff to do anything behind anybody's back to build a road through Dogway Oaks," unquote. I did not use the word collusion in the 3-minute report and find it interesting that Mr. Allian used the word in his comments. Quoting one definition of collusion, collusion occurs when 2 persons or representatives of an entity or organization make an agreement to deceive or mislead another, unquote. This reporter is not aware of any agreement between any city staff or council members. This reporter is aware of conduct that implicates many, conduct whose character is revealed by a close analysis of the content of the emails. Which bring this reporter to Mr. Allian's statement that, quote, "This is just Douglas McKenzie's fantasy. In his own mind, he's tried to concoct something that wasn't there. And that I think it's time he stopped this ridiculousness and let us get on with the business. And that I get a little tired of hearing Doug pontificate. I think he likes to hear himself speak." This reporter submits that Mr. Allian's arguments in defense of his actions and those of others are weak and unpersuasive. Anyone of average intelligence reading the emails knows that there is a there. Recurring meetings, talking the language, meeting with experts in the airport's general counsel, talking water credits, talking revenue sharing, talking not making the folks at the Oaks lose their minds, talking being blindsided by language in the EIR that said members of our council and the airport had been meeting regularly. Finally, that Mr. Allian feels entitled to engage in ad hominem attacks and slanderous statements reveals his privilege, the bankruptcy of his arguments, and his desperate reliance upon personal attacks to cover for his own unjustifiable behavior and continuing misrepresentation of the facts. Mr. Allian doth protest too much, methinks. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. Dennis. Dennis, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I
There you go.
applaud. Doug, that was your best yet. Fantastic dribble. Okay, so what I wanted to do tonight was thank Kristen Clark for her many decades of service to the city. She's done a fabulous job. You have to realize, I hope people realize, that when Kristen first came on the council, we were in desperate straits. The city was running near deficit budgets or deficit budgets every year. We were spending more money than we were able to generate. We had a very trying experience with a developer. I think the council has learned from that, and I hope the city has learned from that. And going forward, I'm trying to pick somebody who is going to develop that valuable piece of property that we have out there in the former Fort Ord property. And I hope that the new city council will work together to come up with a plan to do something appropriate, and I underscore the word appropriate, with that property out there. At one point in time, it was estimated that the value of the property in total was $17 million. And it'll be a travesty if the city doesn't do something constructive, environmentally friendly, and conscious of the environment and do something with that property. Kristen, thank you for all the hours, days, months, years that you have devoted to being a city council member. I hope that some people in the city appreciate the sacrifices that you made to be a member of the council. I also want to thank Louise Getzel for your dedication and work on the council. You've done some fabulous work. You're a detailed person. It's all been very good. So Kim Shirley and Scott Donaldson, you have big shoes to fill. I hope that you're up to the task and ready to dive in and get your work done. You have a steep learning curve to go through. A lot of people think that this is something you can pick up overnight, and that's not true. So Kristen, thank you very much for listening to the people of Delray Oaks over all these years. And in spite of what Mr. McKenzie said, we've always been upfront and honest with the people of Delray Oaks. There's impossible for us to have done anything under the table without getting public approval through the city council processes. So thank you again for your honest, hard work, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other public comment? I'm going to give everybody a minute to either raise their hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we're going to go ahead and close public comment. We're going to move on to presentations. It's pretty exciting tonight, a couple of really big things coming for our city. And we're going to start with Central Coast Community Energy, which we may all know as Monterey Bay Community Power. We will be, the city, all of our residents and our businesses will be rotating in starting January, and we invited J.R. Killigrew to come and talk about the transition and what to expect and all of that. So I'll turn it over to J.R.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kerr. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Okay, great. It's great to be here tonight virtually with the wonderful city of Delray Oaks. I think one of my first presentations actually was with Delray Oaks back in June of 2018. So it's great to come full circle and provide you this enrollment update as one of our 33 member agencies. You'll be hearing a lot about the transformation and evolution of Monterey Bay Community Power into Central Coast Community Energy, but we're really excited to have Delray Oaks as part of our family now and look forward to serving all the wonderful residents and businesses in the city. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just give me 1 second. I will share my screen. Can folks see the full screen? Okay, excellent. So we do like to categorize these as annual member agency updates. We like to provide an update to City Council or the Board of Supervisors, depending upon if you're a county or a city, once a year, but we actually do a ton of work with staff, community leaders, and all the communities that we serve. Give me 1 second. Okay, so the one thing we always want to start off is, you know, the way the grid works in California between investor-owned utilities, the California Independent Systems Operator, which is the traffic cop for the electrons, and then CCAs, are better known as Community Choice Energy Agencies. How does this all work, and what does this all mean for customers? So we like to remind folks when we get started that it is a partnership to support our shared customers. There's legislation that's now codified under the California Public Utilities Commission that allows cities like Delray Oaks or counties to actually create a joint powers authority. And that entity actually goes to the wholesale market. There's this huge, vast market in California where load serving entities actually go out and they enter into contracts on behalf of their customers. That energy is then kind of balanced by the California Independent Systems Operator. It gets transmitted across the transmission line and it lands in homes and businesses. So the one thing we like to say is electrons are indistinguishable. So there's no way to be able to say I'm getting a green, brown, or yellow electron. It's just, think about it as one big bathtub. So the great thing about this model that has improved the electrical makeup of California is that you now have a public agency that actually goes out and sources clean and renewable resources on behalf of you. Those resources are put on the grid, and then the California Independent Systems Operator, in partnerships with PG&E or SCE, they go ahead and deliver those electrons to homes and businesses. So we like to end on this infographic that you get the same great service, but even at even more competitive prices. So basically you're able to leverage the good model of the investor-owned utility in terms of transmission and distribution. And now you have a locally based community choice energy agency deciding how and where your energy is coming from. Now, when we like to kind of go back in time a little bit, especially with a community like Delray Oaks, and just kind of like outline the expansion and a little bit of the history of 3CE, which originally, as you all got to know us, was Monterey Bay Community Power. So we started back in March of 2018, serving about 35,000 commercial and agricultural customers in the Monterey Bay region. We expanded service to all the residential customers in July of 2018. So we had about 275,000 customers then. And actually the cities of Morro Bay and San Luis Obispo requested membership about a year later in November of 2018. And that actually jump-started an effort for us to speak with communities who had not joined our agency and really just provide them with value proposition, have those discussions in open city council or county supervisor board meetings. And that ended up leading to an additional 12 communities requesting membership over the last about 16 months, and that includes the wonderful city of Delray Oaks. So right now we're at the precipice of enrolling 100,000 customers in January, from all the way down to northern Santa Barbara County, all the way up to Delray Oaks. And actually in October of 2021, we'll be enrolling the rest of South Santa Barbara County. That includes Goleta and Carpinteria. And then the last city, the city of Buellton, will be enrolled in January of 2022. So we have a very active schedule over the next year, which is why we want to get ahead of each enrollment and connect with each one of the communities that we're going to serve. So I did want to mention that everybody got to know us as Monterey Bay Community Power, but with that expansion, that actually led our board to reevaluate the name. And as much as we wanted to hold on to that wonderful name of Monterey Bay Community Power, MBCP, it's got a great ring to it, but because our service is now expanded to effectively to embody 33 communities, so 4 counties, and 29 cities. And the Central Coast really is that synonymous region that has that awareness. We felt like it was time to kind of take that step. So our board actually updated our Joint Powers Authority agreement, and we are now formally, according to the Secretary of State and the California Public Utility Commission, Central Coast Community Energy. So we did that about a couple months ago. So for all the customers in Delray Oaks who get enrolled in January, when you get your first bill in February, you will actually see Central Coast Community Energy electric generation charges. So you will not see anything related to Monterey Bay Community Power, just Central Coast Community Energy. I've spoken a lot about who we are already, so I'll move through this pretty rapidly, but I did want to kind of highlight that our service area has expanded rapidly. So this kind of gives you a sense of, you know, we serve the 4 counties, the unincorporated regions, and then the 29 cities there within. So the 2 lone communities that we don't serve yet would be Atascadero and the county of San Luis Obispo. So Delray Oaks was actually the last community in Monterey County that was eligible for our service. The great thing is the city of King City actually started its own program. So the wonderful thing about the community choice model is communities are able to choose and figure out what's the best path forward for them. Our governance structure, we have a very robust public process. I know folks always ask about, are there better ways for us to improve? But we're one of the few agencies that has 3 boards effectively. So we have a policy board that meets 4 times a year, that's of elected officials. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that Delray Oaks is joining the coastal city seat of Marina, Sand City, Seaside, and Delray Oaks. And one of the really wonderful evolutions of our updating of our Joint Powers Authority is now all the seats or the jurisdictions that aren't the principal seat on the particular seat, they actually can join in a non-voting section. So you'll see at the end of tonight's agenda packet that there's a letter from our CEO to the city of Delray Oaks requesting that you identify a senior city leader as well as an elected official to join our upcoming policy and operations board meeting to be a part of the discussion, so you're much more informed in our process. So that is a great improvement for us to engage with all 33 of our member agencies as opposed to just the 17. So I kind of jumped ahead of myself a little bit, but our board is set up in the standpoint that communities over 50,000 get an individual seat, and then communities under 50,000 get a shared seat. So it's all done by geography based on where we are. So again, Delray Oaks is in partnership with the coastal cities of Marina, Sand City, and Seaside. I did want to move on to accomplishments. I speak to these very respectfully in light of what's going on with COVID. There are a lot of folks that are struggling right now. We're doing everything we can to provide resources to folks and provide a value proposition in light of what's going on. But I did want to just mention that we did just receive an A rating from S&P. So we are the 4th CCA to get a credit rating, but the first program to actually get an A rating. That's the highest rating to date. And what that means to customers in the city of Delray Oaks is that allows us to go out and negotiate better contracts, more affordable contracts, and that can translate into better rates and more opportunities for our customers. And I mentioned, you know, I humbly try to deal with accomplishments in light of COVID-19, but this is really what separates us from an investor-owned utility or even a direct access provider or even a municipal utility. We have not heard of any other load serving entity do something like this, which is to say we decided to reduce all of our electric generation rates for all of our enrolled customers by 50% for 2 straight months. That got unanimous board support from all of our boards, and that actually equated to about $24 million of financial relief for our enrolled customers. So those are kind of the opportunities and the innovation and the responsiveness that this agency brings to Delray Oaks once folks start being enrolled in January of 2021. I mean, it's really a testament to the type of leadership that we have and the collective brain trust that we leverage from across the Central Coast. I did want to highlight a list of, sorry, I've got 2 little ones in the background, so I'm doing my best to keep things focused. You know, we've been very busy in terms of our energy program procurement. That's one of the most important things that we bring to the table, is going out and procuring for new and occasionally existing renewable resources to help clean up the grid and ensure that we can be an active and reliable participant on behalf of our customers. So right now we've actually entered into, I believe it's 8 contracts that are going to start coming online sometime next year through 2023. These 8 contracts actually account for about 35% of our annual demand. That's way ahead of any state targets that's been met in terms of building long-term renewables. But the most important project we did want to highlight is we're actually building a 60 megawatt battery project in conjunction with a solar project down in South Monterey County. So it's one of the first kind of utility scale battery projects that are going to be built in our service area. The one other really amazing evolution that's happened to this agency since the last time we've spoken is about our pathway in terms of our energy procurement. We have now set a course to achieve 60% clean and renewable resources by 2025 and 100% by 2030 by entirely new resources. This is drastically different than anything else any other agencies kind of outlined to date. And the more important piece is new. So by 2030, all of the energy that we're putting on the grid on behalf of all of our customers across the Central Coast will come from new projects, not existing projects, new projects. So the whole point of our agency is to help accelerate the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions on the grid by doing it affordably and reliably. That's going to come from a whole variety of resources of long duration storage, short duration storage, the myriad of renewable resources there are like wind, solar, geothermal, even biomass, and potentially small scale hydro. So that's on the utility scale, but then on the local side, really looking at accelerating electrification programs and just the evaluation of untapping distributed energy resources and local storage to help monetize that, not only for us, but our customers. So we've really got an exciting next 9 to 10 years to get going, and it's a great time for Delray Oaks to join the party. I just want to quickly go over our energy programs. This is another hallmark component of our agency. So 3% of our gross revenue, effectively 3% of what customers pay us every month, gets set aside for energy programs. And that's really focused on how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions affordably through electrification and fuel switching. These programs are very innovative, and it gives you an idea that we're focusing on transportation electrification, building electrification, also ag electrification, and then resiliency. So those are the kind of the 4 buckets that we're allocating funding for this year and moving forward. Another fund, actually, when the city of Delray Oaks enrolls, this is a good opportunity for you folks. The city actually will have access to low-cost financial support for backup power supply at city facilities. So whether it's City Hall, the police station, the fire station, you name it, we actually have open financing available, and some of your member agency cohorts are actually applying for this fund. So it was another innovative model that we set forth to set aside $25 million to help with backup supply for critical facilities across the Central Coast. So now we're going to pivot. I always like to give a quick update about, kind of who we are, where we come from, and how we're moving forward. And now we get to pivot to the enrollment, the nuts and bolts of what it's all going to mean for the wonderful city of Delray Oaks. So you've got about 1,000 eligible accounts that will be enrolling over the course of January. The majority of them are residential. So it's about 85% residential, about the 15% non-residential or commercial, and the entire community of Delray Oaks, so all the residents and businesses, consume about 9 million kilowatt hours per year. Just kind of fun little facts that folks may not think about too much. So we've developed this pretty robust community enrollment plan that focuses on kind of key areas to make a successful enrollment. And when I mean a successful enrollment, that just means awareness, that people are aware the change are coming, whether they want to opt out or not. They have the information and they can make an informed decision for their home or their business. So we're actually doing direct outreach to the top customers in Delray Oaks, as well as doing outreach to key stakeholder groups. We're leveraging a lot of regional advertising, as well as sending out the 4 mailers that we have to by law. We're developing a ton of digital resources, which I will share with the City Council after tonight. Our call center is available for you to answer any questions about billing. And then actually we have scheduled 3 net energy metering enrollments in 2021 to best align with people's true ups. So in terms of service offerings, so over the course of January, there are about 20 different meter read dates over the month of January. So it's not just a January 1st transition. So when your meter is read, or transition in January, you will be enrolled in our service offering 3C Choice. And so that offering right now, that is the pathway that we're taking towards 60% clean and renewable by 2025, 100% by 2030. This one is the most competitive option for you, but we still do offer a voluntary offering 3C Prime should you want to support 3CE putting more renewable energy on the grid a little faster. So the enrollment, logistically, we just sent out the notifications last week. I'm hoping everyone got one. We saw a huge spike in our call center volume, so that's a good sign that folks are getting them. We will be sending out another notice in early December, but we also will be emailing all of the customers in Delray Oaks that have an email address with PG&E, letting them know that, we're sending you another notification. Here's your email notification, but primarily to drive participation. We have 2 virtual public forums in December. One's in English and one's in Spanish. It's on December 8th and December 10th. So it's just another opportunity for us to reach out to folks electronically and just get them to register, because these presentations are a great opportunity for folks to learn more, get engaged, ask questions, and it provides them with greater access to 3CE staff. So as I mentioned, in January 2021, the service transition will happen over the meter read date. You will get your first bill in February that will show Central Coast Community Energy electric generation charges. You also get another notice in February, another notice in March. So that's the enrollment period for the non-NEM customers. But again, just remember, it's effectively 120 days, or sorry, it's 5 months from the time you get your first notice to your last notice in terms of the enrollment period. If you decide to opt out after that time, there is a small administrative fee of $5 for residential or $25 for commercial. So again, but rest assured you can opt out at any time. But if you do want to do that, please do it during the enrollment period, because it just avoids that administrative fee. But again, you can do that at any time. This is what the bill is going to look like when you see our charges coming onto the PG&E bill. Again, PG&E handles all the billing moving forward. If you want to change rates or do anything with your bill, you'll call PG&E. But if you want to discuss your bill with us, we'd be happy to walk you through the charges, kind of help you unpack that. So previously, you just had a line item for current electric charges that actually included delivery and generation charges. Now it gets unbundled or decoupled such that you see two lines on your first page of your bill, which shows the current PG&E electric delivery charges and then Central Coast Community Energy generation charges. So it just splits them in half so that PG&E can basically collect the money from the customers and remit it to us. We're not a duplicate charge. We're not an extra charge. I swear, Scout's honor, we are not. You actually get a generation credit on the third page of your PG&E bill. Basically, that offsets what you would have paid PG&E for generation charges. So that's all there. When you get your bill, feel free to take a look at it. But again, that's all done because PG&E takes care of all the billing, and it wasn't, there was not a chance when the bill that introduced community choice aggregation back in 2002 that allowed the CCA to take over the billing. So it was always going to come from the IOU, and we're still struggling with the presentment issues, but just rest assured, we do everything we can to kind of make sure that folks are aware of the changes. We're also developing a couple videos that we should be sharing in a couple weeks just about understanding your bill. That's something we'll share with council and the community. Another good way to help educate your neighbors, your businesses about how to kind of unpack the billing moving forward. For the NEM customers, so NEM are rooftop solar or customers that have renewable energy that basically gets fed into their meter in that sense, or fed into their home or their business to offset the usage they would take from the electrical grid, from the greater grid. It's an accounting balance. That's an accounting mechanism effectively. So what we do is we have a fair amount of NEM customers. I don't know off the top of my head how many are in Delray Oaks, but we will be aligning the customers so they will be trued up in April, July, and October of 2021. We'll bundle those groups based on when your true up month is. So we're actually going to go, in addition to the 4 mailers that we're going to send the net energy metering customers, we'll also send a customized letter to them, an email notification, and then set up webinars before each one of those transition months to make sure that folks are aware of this transition. Here's an outline of our enrollment timeline. We are already almost into December, so we've been well under our way in terms of our outreach. As I mentioned, the enrollment notifications have hit. We've actually hosted a couple office hours for residential customers, met with some businesses across the Central Coast. And so we're really moving full steam ahead into kind of the first phase of our enrollment, which is the pre-enrollment activities. January is that transition month. We're looking to hopefully host a Flip the Switch event. It's a virtual event where we just get folks together virtually and just kind of commemorate the fact that service is starting. We did one last year in San Luis Obispo. We had this big old great switch that folks got to do, push that for the city, the mayor of San Luis Obispo and the mayor of Morro Bay. We did that in 2018. We did 2 of them, one at the city of Monterey and then the other one at the county of Santa Cruz's government center. So maybe there's an opportunity to do in person, but I doubt it. But again, keep your eyes out for that virtual event. And then we'll continue with the notification and enrollment activities in February and March. So that sums up the enrollment update. Hopefully I've been efficient with everybody's time. But again, this is the first step. And I highly encourage folks to join us on December 8th. That's in English, and December 10th, that's in Spanish, to learn more about the enrollment. But some of the key highlights we just want to summarize. So we have set up a satellite office in San Luis Obispo. We do have staff down there that is still working remotely, but one day they will be working out of that office, which is great to kind of show the footprint of our region. The pathway to 100% clean and renewable is another exciting effort. And then really kind of leveraging our CAC, our Community Advisory Council, for outreach, and then the opportunity for non-voting seat participation for our communities on the operations board and policy board. And then last but not least, just want to kind of throw some stats at you at the city of Delray Oaks is over the course of 2021 and through early 2022, we'll be enrolling about over 140,000 customers across 12 communities from southern Santa Barbara all the way up to Delray Oaks. So On that note, I conclude my presentation. I'm sure, hopefully these answered a lot of the questions, but I'm happy to stay on and answer them should the council have any or the community. So thank you again very much, council, and I look forward to hearing any questions from you.
Thank you, JR. Pretty impressive stuff. We're excited to be a part of it finally. I'd like to start with the council. Kristen, any questions, comments?
There we go. You talked about a new site for generating power with batteries. And are those batteries, one, how large are they? How long do they last? And how, I'm beginning to get concerned about batteries and the disposal of batteries. We talk about clean energy, but it takes energy to make these batteries. And where are we going to put all these batteries, you know, from cars, and what are we going to do with all the solar panels that don't work anymore after, you know, 20 years? Are you beginning to think about how you're going to address all this?
Yeah, thank you, council member. It's a very important question because I think it gets to life cycle emissions and kind of thinking holistically about what an agency is doing, not just from kind of the end source, but from kind of start to finish. So it's important for everybody to be thinking about that. You know, right now, the utility scale battery storage projects, the life cycle of those are about 10 to 12 years. The duration of the output, so what's stored in the batteries, right now runs about 4 to 6 hours, normally about 4 hours. But what's very interesting is we recently issued an RFO to basically go to the marketplace for long duration storage. So that's 8 hours or more. So how do you store clean energy and then be able to deploy it for 8 hours? Because as you know, the sun, right during this time of year, sunsets around 4:30. You know, how do we get through that peak time when everybody comes home and consumes everything? You know, the life cycle or the duration of solar panels, yes, is about 20 years. But in terms of kind of replacing that, there is a secondary market for it. The batteries still have some useful life, but in terms of them being able to kind of operate at the scale that the utilities need, there are a lot of secondary markets that are developing both for solar panels and kind of utility scale battery projects. So while I can't guarantee you that everyone won't end up in a landfill, it certainly is a much better alternative than what are we going to do with all the kind of decommissioned natural gas plants that just have all that natural gas sitting there and not being utilized. So I think it's sort of it's always a good question to investigate as you have this clean energy revolution or clean energy evolution that's happening right now. But hopefully those answer your questions.
Okay, I just have one more question. Are we the blackouts that a lot of people are experiencing? Is that because there's not enough energy to provide, you know, during these when it's really hot and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's another. It's a fascinating question because I think, you know, from a psychological standpoint, folks just want to be able to point at one or two things. You know, some of the outages that happened, there were some issues with some of the utility scale projects. Some of the natural gas plants actually got tripped. And actually it was just an extraordinarily heat day. And sometimes the CAISO, the California Independent Systems Operator, they don't plan to those extremes. And I think with all this extreme weather that's happening more and more, they're starting to realize that we do need more resources online, especially just in those kind of like 4 to 8 hour time periods. And a lot of it has to do with we've actually been able to avert some of these outages because of conservation. So that's one of the biggest things that we actually can do as customers overall is during these extreme heat days or flex alerts, you know, be able to reduce load at our house. And that actually can help kind of we don't need the need to put on those extra kind of gas plants because ultimately that's what's being turned on. And we're hoping from our standpoint that over time we'll be able to replace. And if this means anything to anybody, there are about 40,000 megawatts of natural gas plants that are running every day in California. Some of them are running on a lower scale. But the point is there's a huge opportunity to replace all of that with either long duration storage or short duration storage, and be able to store clean energy to get us through kind of any of these myriad of challenges that we have in the future. So there's a lot of opportunity there to kind of replace the old with these new technologies that are coming online.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Pat. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you, JR, for the presentation. It was very well done. Kristen covered all my concerns, so thank you very much.
All right, John.
Yeah, JR, I have an electric car, and I'm on the PG&E program where I buy my power at night and I charge at night. How am I going to, what is 3CE going to offer in that regard?
Yeah, so we match all of PG&E's rate classes right now. I'm an EV driver, so I'm on one of the EV rates, and I have been since we moved down here. So we match all of the rates, or at least the rate classes that PG&E has right now. So if you have a standalone meter that you're able to plug your EV into and be able to track that, we match that. Or if you have your kind of EV associated with your greater meter, then we match that as well.
Meaning that my nighttime power is cheaper than my daytime power? Is that
correct? Yeah. So all the time of use schedules, all the variability, so time of use, seasons, and then the rate classes, we all match. Yep.
Okay. And my one question is on that Cal Flats, the Cal Flats solar storage project. So the Cal Flats project was my project, but the battery storage project is totally being outside. But I am curious about, I've been watching that queue position because we're looking to do another project, and I'm curious if you guys too, what's your faith in the deliverability? You're going to find that out here in the next 5 to 6 weeks.
Yep. So, we'll find out. We're hopeful.
Yeah, we all are. But
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm hopeful for you for a lot of reasons. So.
Yeah. And just on a side note, we did sign an MOU with a developer that has been looking at utility scale projects in the region.
Yeah.
They're circling one. That's as much as we can say right now. But we also are looking at developing an RFO for local generation. Some of the aspects will be disclosed in the coming months. So we are going to kind of, reintroduce ourselves to the market in the region to see if there are, cost-effective projects within the service area.
Good deal. And then also full disclosure, one of my clients is going to be responding. I won't tell you who, but responding to your long duration storage RFO, and I'm excited by that too. So these are all game changers. I'm really excited by the work that you guys have been doing. So you have a fan.
Thank you, council member.
You have a couple of fans. Louise.
Yeah, thank you very much for the briefing, and thank you, Kristen, for bringing up those points of concern. Full disclosure, I'm president of the Homeowners Association of condominiums here in Delray Oaks, and I would like to get more information. And I think some of the other, maybe the businesses, if not private homeowners, would be interested in what you offer as far as electric vehicle charging stations. If there's a loan program or some type of program that you offer to assist in people installing those. And then, well, I'll let you answer that, and then I've got one more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Gotzel. So we did, in terms of EV infrastructure or electric vehicle infrastructure, I'll apologize if I use too many acronyms. We did actually court the California Energy Commission to bring $6 million into the Monterey Bay region for the Cali VIP. It was called the Central Coast Incentive Project. So they provided incentives for fast chargers. So those are those big machines that can charge vehicles in 30 to 45 minutes, or level 2 chargers that would be publicly accessible. So that funding's been available since October of 2019, and all communities, all customers, didn't matter if it was PG&E or us, were eligible, and we had funding within Monterey County. And I actually do believe there is still funding within Monterey County for level 2 infrastructure. So right now, any business, doesn't matter if you're with PG&E, a bundled service customer, or soon to be our customer, that funding is still available. I think there's a couple $100,000 left. So we can certainly send you that link to circulate to the business community. And then additionally, about presenting to any groups, Gabe Ruiz, who's one of our newer staff members, he's a key account specialist. He would love to come out and virtually connect with you all. So we're here. The nice thing about being virtual is we actually can optimize a lot more engagement than we may be able to in an in-person environment, just because we can set up meetings after meetings that actually have greater impact and greater reach than if we're driving around trying to meet people. It does, granted, it's not the in-person that we know and love, but from a standpoint of getting awareness out, there's some benefits for us to being in the remote environment. And then moving forward, for kind of the residential and commercial market for EVs, you know, the Air District still has incentives out there for to buy electric vehicles. I think it's either $1,500 or $2,000 for a new car, and $1,000 for old cars. They still have a lot of funding there. And then our programs right now, we have Cali VIP, so we have that infrastructure, and then we're going through another process to evaluate priorities for our next suite of programs for that would start in October of 2021. So we'd love to get your ideas about how to best invest in the region. So it's a great time for you folks to enroll, but then also be at the starting gate of helping develop the next suite of programs.
Thank you. The other thing that really, it's just a comment that really interests me and I'm very much for, is the electrification program. Definitely think that that's a great way to go. Also, I've mentioned it before, that I see that as we develop our property out of Fort Ord, that not have gas lines going to it, but you know, that would be a total electric type of community, or whatever facilities do end up being out there. I've read quite a bit about the dangers. People don't realize the inherent dangers of gas. And one of the things that I read recently was a study out of San Francisco where they questioned children that were brought into emergency rooms with asthma attacks, and 42% of them lived in homes that had gas appliances. Now, you know, not only saying that the gas causes it, but it definitely seems to be a contributing or aggravating factor, that the off gases, the exhausts are not healthy from gas appliances and gas furnaces and things. So I'm definitely for the electrification program, and I thank you all for doing that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Louise. I have a couple. How soon can we start taking advantage of programs that you have?
That would all depend on what customer you are, whether we have an eligible program for you, and when it's being rolled out. So most likely probably the springtime, summertime. But I do want to mention that I can certainly circulate the information about Cali VIP. So for businesses, it doesn't matter if you're with us or them. Or sorry, if you're still a bundled customer or soon to be a 3CE customer, that funding is still available. And then we actually put $1 million on top of that. So it's effectively $7 million for EV infrastructure for the Monterey Bay region. But yeah, as we start getting our programs out the door, you know, we will let all of the eligible customers know. So probably spring, summertime. And then the great thing about the City of Delray Oaks joining and the community is you get to be a part of shaping the next generation of programs for October of 2021, which will be even more robust and more inclusive.
Great. Does the expansion now make you the largest CCA in California?
Mayor Kerr, I wish. It's largest by geography and certainly the most beautiful. and wonderful place to be. But no, there are a couple that are larger just by the number of customers. When the city of San Diego launches, they'll be, if not the biggest, but this maybe in second place. There's this our sister agency out of LA County. They have almost 1 million customers, and then the city of San Jose started its own program, and they have, I think, 750,000 customers. So we're still quite significant, I think, in the top 5 or 6.
Okay, great. And I have a question. Will the city, so the city receives an electricity franchise tax. Will shifting from PG&E to 3CE affect that?
Not in one way, shape, or form. Everything stays the same. The entire calculation is based on the PG&E rates, and so they remit that to you. That gets collected, and we really it basically, it still stays the same. That's the easiest way. A lot of our cities who are enrolling, like Paso Robles, had the same question when we went through this process, but everything stays the same.
Okay, great. And then my last one is, how does a resident apply for the Community Advisory Board?
Oh, great question, Mayor Kerr. So right now we have all 15 seats accounted for, but we do have an open application on our website. So I'd be happy to include that in my follow-up email. Hopefully you're all ready for an email that's going to be this long, but I can certainly send that to you. It's an open application process, but right now, until somebody steps off or decides not to be on, then based on that geography, we would then go and look for a replacement for that seat.
How long are the seats? Is there a term?
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 years, and they rotate.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to go out to the public. Anybody have any questions, comments? I see Dennis Allion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Dennis Allion, Delray Oaks, Fort Los Encinos Drive. I was a very strong advocate for this program when I was a member of the council, and I'm happy to see it come to fruition. Questions, though, is nuclear power is not listed as a renewable energy source, or do you get any nuclear power as a part of your portfolio? JR?
Through the mayor, if I may, no, we do not. We do not.
Okay.
It is still deemed, it's a non-renewable resource because we're not replicating them. But in many camps, it's deemed as a clean or carbon-free resource. Again,
Yes.
from a combustion standpoint, it's not emitting anything. There's a lot of questions about downstream and other impacts. I don't, that's another day for a coffee.
Okay.
But in terms of us, sorry.
I'm sorry, JR, could you just mention a little bit about the decision-making process that happened a couple of months ago in regards to nuclear?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Mayor Kerr. So if folks will indulge me with a little bit of a backstory, there is something called the power charge and difference adjustment, which is a charge that all CCA and direct access customers, so anybody who leaves PG&E, SCE, or San Diego Gas and Electric Service for an alternative source, they get levied with a monthly charge that basically makes the current bundled customers, so the folks in the Central Valley or the customers who decide to opt out of community choice service, indifferent. Basically, the utilities have gone out and procured for, resources that were supposed to serve their entire service area. Their customers departed. Now they're stuck with these horribly expensive contracts, and the market's tanked. So they're left with holding this bag, and they basically went to the CPUC and said, I just have to say, this just feels unfair. We don't want to saddle our current customers with this charge. We think we should charge the departing customers the delta between what we contracted for and what we have to sell it for. So there's not a lot of transparency behind that entire process in terms of how they arrive at the calculation, and a lot of some of the interesting evolutions of how they've been able to include resources that were way before CCA service started. So I want to forgive you all the details, but basically what happened is the CCAs, our network of 21, as well as Southern California Edison, and then a direct access service provider called Commercial Energy, formed this working group at the direction of the California Public Utility Commission. And what they did was try to hammer out some agreement where we could figure out a way to kind of unlock the market potential of large hydro or carbon-free attributes, because a lot of CCAs are going out and buying large hydro attributes to be able to claim that they're a certain portion carbon-free or clean or whatnot. But basically, the IOU said there's no value in that, so we're not going to reduce the PCIA because we don't see a market value. But we'd be happy to give you all this stuff for free. So basically, PG&E went to all the CCAs and said, would you like to take nuclear attributes, basically just the credit for them deploying the energy onto the grid, or large hydro attributes, and we get it for free, but that's the consolation prize. So basically, we're not going to touch the PCIA, but we'll give you these free credits or attributes so you don't have to go buy them from the Pacific Northwest. We went through this pretty robust discussion with our Community Advisory Council, then our Operations Board and our Policy Board. We decided to accept these nuclear attributes, which is all it was. People say you can't unbundle the credits from the energy. You absolutely can. Basically, PG&E was going to give us a couple hundred megawatts of nuclear attributes so that we wouldn't have to go pay for them in the Pacific Northwest. Basically, it would have reduced our overhead by a couple $1 million a year into the future. You know, that was step one. So we went through a public process. We initially said yes to it. And then there were a lot of concerned community members who didn't want to have us associated with nuclear at all. It didn't matter if it was attributes or not. So effectively, we had to go back to their board, and they ended up saying that we're going to reject the allocation of nuclear. We did say yes to the hydro, so that helps reduce our costs. But the interesting thing about all that is that actually was the jumping off point for us to re-envision our procurement strategy. So we kind of came out of that whole discussion with, we need to do even better. And that's what led us to 60% by 2025 and 100% by 2030 by new renewable projects. So thank you for indulging me with that long-winded narrative, but there's just a lot of background that I try to succinctly explain to people so that folks can get a sense of the decision-making process and all the other things that are happening behind the scenes that lead to a decision.
Thanks, JR. Any other public comments, questions?
Well, Chris, Mayor,
Oh,
Madam
excuse me.
Mayor, I didn't have much of a chance to ask a question there.
Okay, please do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that background on the nuclear. I just hope that people aren't intimidated by the news media and its coverage of nuclear power, which has actually turned out to be enormously safe and terribly inexpensive compared to other sources of energy. And its potential for being a source of clean, truly clean energy for us is enormous. So I hope that the association can continue to look at that and be objective about it, as I hope the state of California, in its effort to become greener and leaner in terms of energy consumption, will also look at nuclear and reconsider its position on nuclear power plants. The other question I had is, have you had any customer complaints?
Absolutely. We have. We had some billing issues when we started off. You know, we sometimes, I think it was more in the first kind of 18 months of operating. We kind of ran into some struggles with our call center, with the IVR, basically that when you make a phone call to kind of try to get to a person, there were some hiccups there. You know, there's been some billing issues, of course. So there have been some challenges, and we've done everything we can to kind of right the ship to make sure that we have a good customer experience. So, you know, people have opted out. We respect that. I think that is probably a better gauge of how it's going, because if we just showed up and said there's 100% participation, then folks would be like, what's happened. So, you know, we have overall about 5% of the consumption is left and stayed with PG&E. So we have about 95% participation. But yeah, I mean, you know, ultimately, a lot of the concerns people have is, you know, they're fine with PG&E being their full service entity. They don't want government in their utility business. The enrollment, the way Assembly Bill 117 was set up, where it's an opt-out model, that rubs some people the wrong way. So, you know, I'm just being transparent that yes, we've run into a lot of challenges. We've gotten through them, and I think every year we get better. But I think the one benefit is we're accessible in that sense, you know, whereas it's tough to get accessibility in the for-profit realm.
And final tidbit here is, can you give us an approximation of what me as a consumer, or Pat Lintel, or anybody else that's listening here, what can we expect in the way of discount savings on our electric bill over a year period of time?
Yeah, so currently right now our discount is 2% after the PCIA and the franchise fee. So that rounds out to a couple dollars a month for a customer right now. The PCIA is changing. So our rates, we don't know what our rates are going to be probably till mid-December, but we're going to really make sure that we're competitive as much as we humanly can.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else? Any other public comments? I see no raised hands virtually. Jim, are you waving? Jim Clark?
Yeah, I'm waving.
Okay, go ahead.
I have yet to find that little hand under the three dots. I'm sorry.
I'll walk with you. I'll work with you.
Did you just say you're a government agency? Did I hear that?
Yes, we are. We're technically a joint powers authority, but we are a government agency. We're comprised of 4 counties and 29 cities. So think of us like AMBAG in a funny way, the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments.
Yeah.
They have elected officials that represent the board, that make the decisions and guide the policy of the agency.
So just so I'm hearing this right, so then you fall under all the government, like all the holidays, the 14 holidays a year, the 1 month of vacation, PERS?
No, we are not. We are not under CalPERS. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the one thing we aren't. We are not.
Okay. And the other thing that I have yet to grasp, and you sound to the power like John sounds like to water, like you know everything. The infrastructure. So I'm PG&E. I put in all these poles, all this cable, and I developed all these clients. Now here you come along and you start picking off all the income I'm having. Why am I going to continue to let you use my poles and my cables?
All right, I like that one. Thank you, Jim. So the one thing is I think there's still this, and this is just part of the evolution of, you know, kind of breaking up a vertically integrated monopoly system is, you know, just to put it into context, like the CAISO, the California Independent Systems Operator, they're in control of the electrons. So it's PG&E's poles and wires, but they're told what to do, when to do it. So basically, effectively, all of us are putting electrons onto the grid. The CAISO kind of sends them across the different kind of networks of transmission and distribution lines, and it lands in the customer's home. And by the way, you pay PG&E handsomely for the transmission and delivery of those electrons. That's where they make all their profit. They're guaranteed a rate of recovery on the generation side of the business, but effectively PG&E and also most of the investor-owned utilities, you know, their business and where they get all their profit that they send to their shareholders is in the transmission and distribution lines. So while we're not picking customers off, it's just basically giving you a different model, but you can still stay with PG&E if that ends up, you know, fitting, you know, your value proposition. But effectively, yes, PG&E and all the investor-owned utilities fought tooth and nail to not let this happen because, again, they liked the game. They were the game. That was it. And it took the CPUC standing in an Assembly Bill 117 to finally give, the market a little more choice. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, hopefully that answers your question about, but again, you pay PG&E irregardless of us for the transmission and distribution lines. And the two mechanisms where they profit the most are actually energy efficiency programs, the public purpose funds that we all pay into, $5 a month. They get paid handsomely to administer those funds to help reduce energy consumption, which I think is a good thing. But they also make quite a bit of money on the transmission and distribution service, which they all pay us, which for most residential customers is about 60% of their monthly bill if you look at it. The difference between generation and transmission and delivery, it's about 60-40 or 70-30.
Okay, and thank you. And I'm invested in solar, just so you know. But when you say they cost you handsomely, or whatever that phrase was, and yet I just heard you answer Dennis that right now the best we can hope for is a couple dollars a month in savings. I don't know that you can use that, you're paying them handsomely, and then say you're only going to save us $2 a month. The money's still going somewhere.
Yeah, but you're paying PG&E for the delivery and transmission service irregardless of us. So basically this model, again, right now, the value proposition that we put forth is we're accelerating a deployment of more clean and renewable resources. You have access to energy programs funding, you have local decision-making opportunities, and then we provide you competitive rates. So that really becomes the value proposition that we present to our customers.
Thanks a lot.
Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, I want to just say, JR, thank you so much for taking the time and walking us through this and what we're going to see over the next couple of months. So I look forward to the email and distributing the information to our folks.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor Kerr and city council members and the wonderful city of Delray Oaks. We look forward to a successful enrollment. And yes, join us on December 8th at 6 p.m. for our community forum. And then for folks who do speak Spanish, we will be hosting another one on December 10th in Spanish as well at 6 p.m. So I will circulate all of that, and that will be on our website for folks to register. So thank you again for the opportunity. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time, but I do appreciate having this great conversation and all the great questions that came from council and the community.
Thanks, JR. Take good care.
Thank you, Mayor Kerr. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good. All right. So we're going to move on to our second presentation, our second monumental project that's going to move the city towards cleaner and healthier activities for us. The FORTAG timing update. And we have Stefania Castillo from TAMC with us, who will walk us through what we can expect for this project. Stefania, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Let me just set up my screen share here. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful, great. Okay, so as Mayor Kerr mentioned, I'm with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, and this is a really exciting project that I've been working on. And I want to provide a bit of background on the project for folks who are new, or and also I want to go over the project milestones. There's been a lot that's been going on. I know it's been a while since we had been back to council, but there were a lot of things going on in the background. So again, the project is the Four-Door Regional Trail and Greenway Project, or FORTAG. The map here that you see shows the 28 miles that are proposed, and this project was, it is part of the voter approved Measure X regional project. So we have about $20 million over 30 years with Measure X. And so we were successful in securing a state grant for funding of phase 1, which is encircled here in the map. And that phase is going to roughly cover the trail going from the intersection of 218 and Fremont Street through Delray Oaks, under Highway 218 and up Carlton Way, connecting over on Plumas Avenues to Delray Woods Elementary. So back in earlier this year, in March 2020, the TAMC Board of Directors certified the environmental document. And then in June of 2020, we had all the different underlying jurisdictions. So City of Delray Oaks, Seaside, Monterey, the Regional Park District approved a master agreement, which outlined the roles and responsibilities of each party. So basically TAMC, we are working to leverage that Measure X funding to secure more grant funding, and we're gonna lead the design, the final design for each of these trail segments, and the underlying jurisdictions will own and maintain their segments, and of course they will have also the jurisdiction to set operations for the trail. So if there's going to be gates that are going to close at certain hours, that will be set by each jurisdiction. So in August of 2020, we received our final design funding allocation from the California Transportation Commission. Again, since we've received that state grant, they have to we have to send our certified environmental documents. So that was a great step forward. From then in August, we released a request for proposals, and we started seeking a consultant team to bring on board to help us with the final design and with public workshops, and also the right-of-way certification process that we have to go, because we are on the state highway. So we need to have close coordination with Caltrans. So just last month, in October 28, our TAMC Board of Directors approved the final design contract with a consultant team led by GHD engineers. And we had a panel with folks from City of Delray Oaks, Regional Park District, City of Seaside, and Caltrans. And we really thought that GHD engineer was really the strongest team, and that they really have the vision of the project in mind. So we are really excited to bring them on board, but because of the amount of this contract, which is about $2.6 million, and the state funding, we do have to go through the Caltrans audit review process before we can bring the consultant on board and have work start. So right now we are optimistic that we are gonna get that approval, hopefully by the end of this month, so that then we can get started on the next steps, which if I just gonna switch my slide here. So once we get the state approval, we will begin land surveying and utility coordination. So that's gonna be really key for us to make some really good maps that we can bring to the community, and we can start having some really great conversations on where this trail is gonna go and what it's gonna look like. But we really need our engineers to come in and do that land surveying and utility first, and that baseline mapping, so that we know exactly where the wetlands are. We also want to coordinate with the garden center and Work Memorial Park, look at some of what can we really do there so that the trail and the garden center and Work Memorial Park just work really great. So once we have that mapping, we'll be coming back and doing some public workshops, so really early next year. Again, it all depends on our state approval. We're optimistic we'll get that this month, so we'll be looking at maybe late January, February for our first public workshop. And then we'll have a series of conversations and workshops as we go through the different percentages of the engineering documents. So we'll be advancing on and getting more details. So we'll be coming back and doing revisions with public input. And eventually we'll come with a draft supplemental agreement to the city council so that we can review the designs and that language, and then to finalize that so that once we get ready for construction. But again, that's down the line. Construction wouldn't begin until 2022. So for next year, 2021, we're really going to be doing the public workshops and going that back and forth with to finalize the design. And so I did wanted to pull up the map that shows what we had proposed in our environmental document and our preliminary concept. Again, we're starting at the intersection of 218 and Delray Oaks, and Fremont Street. So that's Caltrans signal. So we need to make sure that we coordinate with them. Work Memorial Park, as I mentioned, will coordinate with the Garden Center, and there's really some great opportunities here to make some really nice community spots. We also want to be sensitive of the creek and the wetland areas here. So again, that's where that mapping and land surveying is going to be crucial. And then when we head towards Angeles Way, we've heard last year when we were going through the environmental review that folks wanted to see this as a bike route, something where we don't have a separated bike trail, but we would have some sort of like bike symbols on the ground painted and some signs that say bike route this way. And then in Delray Park, that's a great trail already there, so we're kind of really following that same footprint. And then another big piece of this project is going to be the tunnel under 218. So we'll spend a good chunk in the public workshops talking about how that's going to look and feel. We'll definitely want to bring in the police department and talk about security, not just for the tunnel, but for the entire length of the trail. Which reminds me that we did publish a conceptual design report for the entire trail. And we have a chapter, and this is all posted on our website, but I'm happy to send a link afterwards that talks about security and safety through design for the entire trail. But again, we're also focusing here for this phase 1 and the tunnel. And we'll have a switchback structure that will make it grade accessible so that folks can go up Carlton. And that again will also be, we'll spend some time on how that's going to look and feel. We want to make sure that it's something that everybody is happy with. And we'll go up Carlton and over to Plumas to make that connection with the elementary school. So kids would have a safe route to go down to the Frog Pond Preserve and out to the parks. And so with that, I am happy to answer any questions or any comments that there are. And I'll stop the screen share, but let me know if anybody wants to see the map again.
Stephanie, thank you so much. What I'm going to do is I'll start with the council. Kristen.
Yes, so I've got 2 questions. One is, do you really have any concept or any idea of what the traffic of bicyclists and walkers will be going through this path? That's number 1. And number 2 is, there's a lot of people that really, including myself, have questions about the tunnel, and not just the tunnel, but that the homeless people that are at Laguna Grande Park will now start traveling through this trail up to the Ford Road property to camp out. So those are some very big concerns, and I just was wondering if you had any ideas of how we're going to address that.
Of course, yeah, those are great questions. And so with the first one, how many people will use this trail? I want to say will probably be something similar to the use that you see now on the trail in Delray Parks and the Frog Pond. We might see some more bike riders coming down from Seaside. From the elementary with that school connection there, there's a lot of folks that use Plumas Avenue currently, so that PG&E easement. But I think you would see your neighbors. I don't think you would see a lot of folks from other areas. I know there is concern about the tunnel and folks coming over from Laguna Grande Park, but I think that really does tend to stay in Laguna Grande Park. And I know that there's a joint power authority, and they're looking at updating their master plan and sprucing up that area. But I think that it's going to also be very key for us and our consultant team to work with the Delray Oaks Police Department so that they have, direct access. They can, there's also, I've talked about, the city has control if they want to have gates at the tunnel or gates in other places. That's something that's really key right now that we can include in the design to make sure that it's really safe. So I hope that got to the question.
Can I just add one thing to the safety?
Of course.
If you have like those mirrors that you can actually, if you place them so that the police can see inside the tunnels, going both east and west, it might help. So you can actually see what's in that tunnel. But closing the tunnel, I know the police aren't going to want to hear there's another gate to close, but perhaps it could be an electric gate that's on a timer. So the police doesn't have to do it, but it can automatically be, shut.
Mayor, if I can make a comment.
Sure.
Absolutely. Stephanie, thank you. Councilmember Clark, we met extensively with Stephanie and the TAMC and FORTAG folks and walked the entire trail and talked about lots of different issues as far as policing and security. And that is, coming from my background, that's the number one thing on my mind. I love the community aspect of it, but that's kind of my bread and butter. We even talked about making sure that the tunnel is wide enough and the trail is wide enough and access for police cars to regularly patrol down the trail, even through the tunnel, and even talked about making sure there was a turnaround on the other side of the tunnel so that we can go all the way through, have a visual of the entrance to the frog pond, and also be able to access back out. So we will look at all of that, and I'm sorry, Stephanie, but I just wanted to add that little bit.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you for your presentation. It's very good.
Thank you.
Pat, if you don't mind, John has his hand up.
Okay,
Can I go to John first?
sure.
Okay, John, did you have?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I had to change my computer because my other one was running out of power. So I'm back to an old rinky-dink thing. So the last time that we had a presentation, there was an alignment through that PG&E easement, and I was glad that you said something when Councilmember Clark was talking. Where is that in the kind of the overall rating of it, of a potential? Go ahead.
Are you talking about the extension from the school down?
Yeah, I believe at one time, and it was just the last time that we all got together and we started looking at this. That was one of the options. One of the proposed routes would be down through that easement, and potentially might even be, a parallel one, an additional one. In addition to everything, the current routing, this proposal one or this phase one, that one also might be included.
Yeah, great question. And it has been a while since we've talked about the alignment. So when we were doing the environmental document, we did have an alternative that would follow that path on Plumas all the way down to Fremont, but that alternative was rejected due to the constraints with the backyards and grading. So the proposed alignment only goes up to the intersection with Noche Buena right at the elementary school.
Okay. All right. No, I have no more further questions. I think, I've been a fan of this the whole thing through. We've got a real issue around Angeles that needs to be rectified. And so it'll be interesting how we're gonna come up with a solution around that. But yeah.
Okay, thanks, John. Pat, thank you for being gracious.
My pleasure. Yeah, there's a lot of opposition to this. on Angelus and the A streets that are cul-de-sacs off of Angelus Way. And can you give me some kind of an idea, Stephanie, of what the anticipated traffic, bicycle or pedestrian traffic would be coming along Angelus Street?
Yeah, so I think for Angelus, we would see something similar to what we're experiencing that right now. I don't have numbers, but we will be collecting counts before construction and then after construction. So we'll be able to have that comparison. But as of right now, I would say that, we would see something similar, or you would see some more folks, maybe some more kids walking around. And I mean, right now with COVID too, we are seeing more people going out and about. So this might be an incentive for folks to use the trail more.
Mm-hmm. But one of the reasons that was expressed to me was the fear of coming off of those streets onto Angelus, that there would be bicycle riders coming at a higher speed, and the safety factor.
Mm. Well, yeah, I'm thinking about like Reseda that goes into Angelus. That, I mean, I would see only fast bike riders, because those are usually the folks that are riding on 218. So I think they would stay on 218. A lot of folks are doing long distance heading towards Highway 68. So I wouldn't think that there would be a lot of them heading on fast down Angelus.
Mm-hmm. And then also having a timer on the gate. I'm not much in favor of that, because I think the police, before they close the gate, would need to inspect to make sure there was nobody in the tunnel, whether it be homeless person or a non-homeless person.
Definitely.
I hate to be trapped in the tunnel.
Yes.
So anyway, I think these are some good ideas and need to be brought forward. And Stephanie, thank you for the nice presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It is my pleasure.
Louise?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. One of the things that I was just thinking about when we were talking, or when Pat brought up the question on Angelus, there are dips on Angelus that my car really doesn't like. And I mean, that would be something that in and of itself would probably slow down people on bicycles too. I mean, it slows me down in my car, and hopefully it slows others down in their cars. And I could see that on a bicycle. So is there any plans at all of changing the road, or would they keep those they're basically drainage coming off of the cul-de-sacs, if I remember correctly. So they're a drainage dip, not quite a ditch, but.
Yeah, and that's a great observation. Yeah, so we wouldn't change anything. We wouldn't do anything to the road. The only thing would be some bicycle markings, just so folks know there's the trail continues, but those would stay as they are now. And you're probably right, it might slow down people even on bikes, just so that, don't go flying off your bike.
You probably need some signage, better signage.
Yes, and so signage and the bike markings on the pavement, but that is just paint.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I was thinking about signage, warning signs about the dips too.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, just like you have a warning sign for a speed bump, now we have a speed dip. And as far as the tunnel is concerned, I would envision some type of security camera system down there.
Okay.
In any case, whether more than just mirrors, having a security camera down there, one from each direction, or one of the ones like they have at the airport that is 360 and have two of them, one on each end. And that way you could have an automatic gate system, maybe not on a timer, but a gate system that the police could activate remotely once they check the cameras and made sure nobody was inside. Thank you again for your presentation and answering our questions.
Thank you. And these are great comments, and we'll have this conversation again, but these are really great. I'm writing all of this down.
Thanks. Thank you, Stephania, for coming and giving us this presentation. I was thinking about the bumps on Angelus too, because they drive me crazy. And in regards to the traffic, it seems as though that for many years, once this is built, it will remain just Delray Oaks people and maybe some neighbors from Seaside. I think where we'll see a potential increase in traffic is when the whole thing is constructed. And from what I understand, being on the TAMC board, that's at least 10 years out. So we have the opportunity to kind of try it out and to see, see who does take advantage of it. I personally live on the north side, and I am thrilled about a tunnel or some safe way for us on this side to be able to get over safely to utilize the park. So I know that Stephania and the community will come up with great safety, and Chief will come up with some great safety avenues to make sure that not only we're safe, but also I think if the homeless wanted to walk through our city, they could already. So that one doesn't bother me quite as much. The one question I did have, Stephania, is on one of the maps, it looked like, so Councilmember Gagliotti mentioned the Plumas possible extension, but I saw in one of your maps, it looked like there was nope, an earlier one. There was a spur. Yeah, so on that yellow, it looks like there's a spur going up Plumas. I don't know if that's
Here, this way, yeah.
Yeah.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have that. That is not part of this project, but that is another connection that we're looking at going over to General Jim Moore.
Okay, that would be an interesting solution for folks that are very concerned about the frog pond. But from what I understand, that segment is, could you talk a little bit about the how the segments are going to be funded and constructed? That might be helpful for people to understand.
Yeah, and that's actually that's perfect, because so the next segments that we have for funding are the segments around the school, around the university. So this northern red segment that you see here, and then this southern orange segment. So just, what was it, September, I submitted 2 state applications to build this entire North CSUMB segment. And we're hoping to hear back February 2021 on whether we get funding for that. But that's our next priority, trying to provide that connection for students to the East Housing and then over to the coast as well. And then this is CSUMB is really where we'll see a lot of the traffic. So that's our priority area right now. We're also looking at the National Monument. There's some state grant funding programs that are more for nature or parks, or less of of an active transportation, which we have down here. That's the funding that we've got. So that would be another area. Another area would be the one, Laguna Grande Park, that we submitted a grant application last year. We were not successful, and that program has not announced more cycles as of yet. So we have not identified another program that would be a good fit, but we are working with the Joint Power Authority there, with the City of Monterey, City of Seaside, and the Regional Park District to see what kind of improvements or what other funding we can go after. And then really the stuff, Northern Marina, that will probably go last, as well as the Ryan Ranch, and then the Frog Pond. That's another area, and east of General J. Moore, the other parcel that is owned by the Park District. that is also, again, we haven't found any programs yet that fit those segments.
Okay.
So that's kind of a bit of our priority that we're looking right now.
In a perfect world, when would the entire trail be complete?
That's a really great question. And well, you know, Measure X, we've got 20 years. So we've got 20 years to really go out and leverage that funding. And, you know, for us, we want to build as quickly as we can our projects. But again, for this one, it's not fully funded. We really do need to go after those grant opportunities.
Great. Thanks, Stephania. I want to go out to the public and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Any questions, comments? Andy?
Yes, thank you. Andy Clark, 926 Angeles Way, is a resident on Delray Oaks. My biggest concern is the creek in front of the house and kids going down there and playing in it. I don't see that as a great, it's a big concern of mine, you know, liability wise. So is there any potential for barricades or background or anything to keep the kids out of the creek?
We haven't, that's not something that has come up with our designs as of right now. Again, I think because we don't expect a lot of we expect the traffic that you see now on Angeles. So the children that you see now, that's kind of what we would expect. So, but this is something, if it's an issue, we can explore more as we go through the public workshops. But it's not something that we have discussed as of now.
Thanks, Andy. Kim Shirley.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Stephania, for your presentation. I'm really excited about FORTAG. So I'm a runner and I can't wait to have a safe place to run. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit in more detail about the public workshops and how the design will actually be finalized. I'm wondering how many public workshops there will be and what's the process of finalizing the design?
Great. Those are all great questions. And we are planning on having virtual workshops until we know that it is safe for us to do another format or an in-person format. But we're also going to explore if maybe the possibility of doing some posters that we could have at City Hall, something that just having different options for folks. I know virtual, you know, I'm sure we've all have Zoom fatigue. So we want to try to change things up as much as we can. And we'll definitely have a series, I want to say, of anywhere from like 6 to 8 workshops. And we also want to do some concentrated focus groups so that we can really, you know, like the tunnel, that's something that folks are really interested in, Angeles Way, so we can have focused conversations. And again, we haven't brought our consultant on board, but they have a really great public outreach team, and they've already been doing a lot of successful virtual events and activities. There might be some online surveys that we do with and that this team is also really good with graphics. So I think that we'll have a lot of different tools for engagement. And for for how the final design is going to be developed, right now we're at 30% plan. So that's, again, nothing that we can build right now. We haven't done the drone surveying for all the utilities and elevation, all of that. So that's going to be key for really getting that baseline mapping, the utilities. And once we have that, then we can talk about where exactly the trail is going to land, where it's feasible for it to be built, what it's going to look like. We'll get input from folks, and then we'll revise what, for example, the tunnel or the switchback could look like. And then we go back again and revise our plans, have another meeting. So that's kind of up until we get to 100% with our final plans.
Thank you. Who actually decides the final plan? Is that just, is that the engineers after they've had enough input and then they just kind of say we're at 100%?
Yeah, so we start, there's like 30, 60, 30, 60, 95, and then 100. So we'll have revisions in between there. So it is the engineers, and I'm not an engineer, full disclosure, so I do rely on them to make sure that, you know, we do have a project that is buildable and will be successful, and it's also following our environmental mitigations and sensitive to the community. So this next year, we're going to be going through that revision process and finalizing process.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So what I'm hearing is it's important for residents with concerns and thoughts to come early in the process.
Definitely,
Before
yes.
Before it's a 60 or 95% solution, right?
Yes, definitely.
Pat, hang on just a second. I'll get right to you. Any other public want to say anything? I'm not seeing any. Pat?
Yes, I'd like to know, Stephanie, is the tunnel cast in concrete, or is it still a potential of having an overpass there instead of a tunnel?
So the overpass was looked when the environmental document, it was rejected because of the aesthetic impact. So that was rejected. We are looking at a tunnel.
Okay, thank you very much.
Kristen, let's come back to the council. Kristen.
Just what Andy was talking about, some of the other folks, and I've witnessed it because I overlook Angeles Way from my kitchen window, but quite frequently people just walking along, this happens more in the winter than the summer, that families will stop, they'll go onto private bridges and overlook and look at the water running through. And I know that there's residents that have, well, of course, some of these residents are thinking that the traffic is going to be much heavier. And so they think that the potential for people to either fall into the creek after hanging over their bridge is there. I'm just, you know, I'm reiterating what I've heard. So I just want that to be in your head, Stephanie, and hopefully those folks will come down and attend the meetings and address some of these issues.
Definitely, yes. That's something that we can discuss with folks more in detail, and we can come up with some solutions. Maybe it's signage or the barricades that were mentioned. We can do some more brainstorming on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
A cute fence or something.
Yes.
Any other comments? All right, well, with that, Stephanie, thank you so much. And it sounds like we're going to see quite a lot of you over the next year.
Yes, yeah,
Or
thank you so
two.
much for having me. Yeah, and I will be seeing you all.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank
very
you.
much.
Take care, everybody.
All right. So on that note, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Any council member want to pull anything for discussion? Any public want to pull any consent agenda for discussion? Dennis?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 4B3, financial reports.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. So let's go ahead and pull it, and please ask your question or comment.
Okay, just a observation. It looks like sales tax revenues are down, sales tax add-on revenues are down, and cannabis is down significantly. So as predicted, you know, we had extensive discussions about this in the past. We can't rely on the cannabis tax to carry us forward in the future. The overall news, or good news, is revenues do seem to exceed expenses. And when we have our financial committee discussion on I think it's the 8th, is that right? Is the 8th?
Yes.
Okay. Let's delve into the question about these, I think on the expenses here, it says capital expenses. We can talk a little bit more about that, but capital expenditures listed as a current expense is sort of a distortion. So I just wanted to bring it up now and bring it to your attention, Mayor, and we can talk a little bit more about that on the 8th.
Great.
But overall, the observation is it looks like our revenues are being impacted by the COVID crisis. Thank you.
Sure. And I would just add, that's no surprise. I think we've all been anticipating that. But when I noted, I don't have it open in front of me, but what I noted was the sales tax add-on was actually a larger percentage. I was looking at everything from a third of a year, and it looks like it's up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to take a look at all of that. So yes. And I'll talk a little bit about the meeting in my report. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I made the same observation. It was just curious that our sales tax is down, but our sales tax add-on is not down as much. I mean, it's down a very small portion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments on that item? Louise.
I was going to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
I second.
All right. Karen, could we please do a roll call vote approving the consent agenda as is?
Councilmember Getzelt,
Yes.
Councilmember Gagliotti,
Aye.
Councilmember Lintel,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Kerr.
Yes. All right, consent agenda is approved unanimously. We're going to move on to staff reports. Turn it over to Acting City Manager Hoyne.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council and residents and others who are attending. It's been a busy month. It's been a busy couple of months for the city and the community. COVID, we're still partially open. City staff is working different hours depending on the needs for the week. It changes almost weekly, but we're working around this and trying to avoid impact. The election process at City Hall went smoothly. I'd like to thank both Karen and Randy for really doing a phenomenal job throughout the entire election, whether it was processing candidates' applications and paperwork to answering questions, where do the ballots go in the box between the two red arrows. They did an outstanding job. We, in the last month, we've submitted our latest Tree City application. So we continue to strive to be a Tree City. There's been a lot of staff work with quick turnarounds with meetings, whether it be the two close together city council meetings and the planning commission meeting. And again, Karen and Randy executed delivery of these items like the pros that they are. In addition, our administrative assistant, Randy Birch, has put together a phenomenal acorn. If you've gotten in and seen it, it looks amazing. And if you haven't got it, it is coming to you shortly. We've sent it out in 2 batches. The Planning Commission meeting was held, and there was a lot of great input, not only from the commissioners, but from all of the citizens that attended. And it was a very robust process with lots of different ideas and concerns. Just a side note, the Planning Commission hearing was only to address limited issues on the conditional use permit. And I'd like to make that clear so that the community understands what is going on. These included the business footprint, rectifying the unapproved expansion of that footprint, the possible addition of expanded Sunday hours, and the right and priority of the Fortag trail to be constructed through the property. Additionally, the removal of the lawnmower repair business, which is close to the creek and that people are concerned about, also close to the trail that's down there now, and the clear access to the public trail that is there so that it's not impeded and it is kept up. Those are all very key issues, and everything that came out of the Planning Commission meeting is now dependent on the last condition that the Planning Commission gave, and that was a successful renegotiation of the lease for the garden center. With that, there are dozens of suggestions, be they or concerns, environmental, aesthetic, operational, hours, things like that, traffic, all of those concerns that we will be looking at over the course of the next couple of months with city staff, with the council members, and we'll be reviewing all the suggestions that we had. And I just want to assure the community that that is a heavy task and a heavy load that we will work on so that we can bring the best lease product to the council for approval with as many of those conditions addressed and rectified or fixed. And the goal here is to get a good, solid, environmentally friendly, community friendly lease with a valued commercial partner in the city. So if you have questions on that, I urge anybody to call me and I'll be glad to discuss that further one-on-one. The other thing I would like to point out is Karen Harris called today and on behalf of the Sustainable Delray Oaks, and was concerned because of the rain and the potential rainfall and the lawnmower business that had some things stored outside right by the sewer or the drainage there that goes out to the bay. Randy, so today went down there with Ron, and I just want people to know this is what this looked like this afternoon, probably 3:30. And we talked with the staff down there, and this is what it looks like now. So that's previous, and that's the front of the business there. And I believe we have another overall view. We've told them the city's concerns and the residents' concerns. They've cleaned all of that up. They'll be putting in new rock, cleaning that out and making sure, and the city will follow up to make sure that we keep away from that drain there that waterway there that goes out to the bay. So we're listening to concerns. We're working with the garden center, and that was just a great suggestion by a citizen in light of all the rain that, it was a good time to address that, and we did it immediately. Thank you, Randy. Budget and finance staff is still working with RGS on the transition after Kim's departure. Things are going well, and we're prepping for a budget committee meeting and eventually the mid-year budget review. The new owners of MBAM have closed escrow. They've attained their permits to operate in the city and are doing so. And if you've been past MBAM, part of the discussions we had with them was cleaning up and modernizing not only their facility facade, but how that landscaping and everything looks as you enter our city. It already looks better, and they've just started, so we're looking forward to see if they have any plans coming to the Planning Commission soon to make the business look better. Public Works, Ron's been working hard as always, installed flow meters at the DRO Park well site to come into compliance. He's been working, or he did a lot of work on Old Town Hall and prep for the election. And if you go on the stair paths adjacent to the park and take a look at the paths up there, Ron has worked hard to supervise the repair and improvement of those paths. They look outstanding. They're much safer. There's handrails and some other improvements that should make that a more enjoyable and safer part of our city. The police department participated in the Special Olympics torch run this last month with a socially distanced and safe fundraiser for the Special Olympics. The law enforcement community throughout California does this every year, and it was probably the first time in memory that I remember that it actually came through the city because we had a contingent of officers large enough and wanted to participate. The Police Advisory Committee planning is going well. Course outlines for initial training have been completed. Officers have been assigned areas to complete PowerPoint presentations for, as well as application paperwork and other associated admin work. We will be getting with the community after the first of the year to get this process going, receive applications, and work with the council on selection. Chief Berkwin received the initial setup information for our new records management system that the council approved a couple of months ago. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to that. That should be installed hopefully in March of 2021. Officer Chris Moore is scheduled to go to the ICI, which is the Basic Investigators course, as we work on getting a more robust investigation capacity here at the city, so that when crimes are committed, we actually follow up and go and arrest as many folks who are responsible for those crimes as possible. And then the Sergeant's Promotional Oral Board actually took place this morning. There are 2 candidates, and they both passed the assessment process. I'd like to thank publicly Sergeant Ron Blair from Monterey Police Department, and also Sergeant Manny Fernandez from CSUMB Police Department, along with Chief Berkwin. They conducted the interview panel, and I am pleased to announce that Acting Sergeant Brian Perez came out as the top finalist, and we will soon be working to make his acting position a permanent position. He is a 15-year member of the Westminster Police Department and a seasoned investigator. And he is also currently a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps Reserves. He's got a bachelor's degree, and he's currently working on his master's degree. Mayor, Council, that's my report for this last month. It's been busy, and we look forward to another couple months of being busy.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 6, Mayor and Council reports, with Councilmember Getzel's report in the packet. But let's start with Kristen.
I don't really have anything to report. I did not make my MST meeting. Pat Lintel did. And I have not received the highlights yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pat?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I attended the Seaside Sanitation meeting. The previous 2 months, the meeting has been canceled, and so in this meeting we didn't have much to do, but we did approve the consent agenda, which included the expenditures, etc., for the previous 2 months. So, and we did get an update on the lift station upgrades, and the work on the Rosita lift station upgrade is currently being done, and it is expected to be completed either mid-December or early January. And there was recognition given to Elisa Kispersky for her work on the board. That was her last meeting. She's a member of the Seaside City Council. The Community Human Services, the meeting will be held this week on Thursday, but since the City Council meeting was moved forward, I don't really have anything to report on that, other than I was asked to be on the Community Human Services Personnel Committee. And I did attend the MST, as Kristen mentioned, as an alternate. And these are some of the highlights from that meeting. The board approved a resolution of the 2021-12 recognizing Peter DeWitt, coach operator, as the employee of the month for November of 2020. And the board adopted a resolution of appreciation recognizing board member Frank O'Connell from the city of Marina for his substantial and lasting contributions to the improvement of public transportation throughout the Monterey Peninsula. And let's see, we received a report from the general manager, CEO, on activities related to the COVID-19 pandemic incident response and recovery planning. And we received a presentation from the Director of HR and Risk Management on MST's, excuse me, COVID-19 contact tracing force, which was really interesting. And let's see, MST Board Chair Dan Alpert took volunteers and assigned an ad hoc committee to provide direction to MST staff in the preparation for the January 2021 strategic planning workshop. And the general manager and CEO announced the retirement of Robert Weber, who is the chief operating officer for Monterey Salinas Transit District. Robert will continue to be with MST until the end of the calendar year before he leaves for the beautiful Red Rocks of Sedona, Arizona, where he will lead efforts to establish their first public transportation system. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. John.
So I have nothing to report because all of my meetings are next week. So at the end of this week and next week, yeah. So, but I'll have to double up next council.
Okay. Louise.
Yes, my reports in the packet. Mosquito Abatement District continues working on their new building, and their work is field work is slowing down, but a lot of their employees are starting to do their required professional development training via distance learning. AMBAG is meeting tomorrow, and excuse me real quick, and I'll give you two things that are of interest that they'll be discussing. There is a, they're planning, not sure when it will be, there will be a public hearing. So there's going to be a briefing about preparing for a public hearing on a Monterey Bay Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 2020 through fiscal year 2024. And there will be the final 2022 regional growth forecast. Will be the final forecast, so the board is going to be expected to approve those. That meeting is a webinar tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, and you can go to the AMBAG website and get information if anyone is interested in attending and getting, especially the regional growth forecast is interesting. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Louise. All right. Well, I'd like to start with appreciation and announcements. First and foremost, thank you to Karen and Randy for their support of the voting process by committing to being at City Hall in person. Many of our voters utilize the ballot drop box, but now that the election is over, hours for City Hall may be shifting a bit, as our acting city manager mentioned. So I suggest calling to make sure that someone is in the office if you are wanting to go there in person, and of course, wear your mask. Randy did a bang up job on his first Acorn. It was filled with a lot of messages and important information. If you haven't received it yet, you will shortly. The election, of course, brought up a lot of topics, and I enjoyed all the communication with residents about those topics. I would highly encourage folks to join the strategic planning meeting we will be having on January 20th. This is where we will create the road forward for the next 6 months. Or you can let me and any of the other city council members know what you would like us to consider moving forward. I want to thank our acting city manager and Ron for the new bollard by the Garden Center path. So it is always open for walkers. Very nice solution. Also at the January council meeting, we will detail the various trainings that council members and planning commissioners are required to take. I am nearing completion of my every 2-year sexual harassment prevention training, just to make sure that everyone is up to speed on kind of behind the scenes what goes into being a council person. And I am also proud to say that I have been appointed to the League of California Cities Community Services Policy Committee, where I and other electeds from across the state will convene to review issues related to childcare, parks, cultural arts, and community and human services. As far as my meetings, right after the last council meeting, I attended the TAMC meeting on Wednesday, October 28th. The meeting notes are included in the packet. And as you heard, we approved the design firm for the Ford Tag Trail. But I just received word today that a $20 million corridor funds have been recommended by the California Transportation Commission staff for a final decision the first week of December. This project would increase safety along Highway 156 at the Castroville Boulevard interchange, which will make a huge shift for all of us that travel pretty much anywhere out of the peninsula. Wednesday, November 4th, we had the sign ordinance subcommittee meeting. We're making good progress getting to a place where our legal counsel can review it shortly. And I would also like to thank all the political candidates who quickly cleaned up the campaign signs. That is always a concern. November 6th, went to a mayor's meeting, our regular monthly mayor's meeting. While the Peninsula mayors all held on to their seats, the county has several new mayors. I think we have 3 new mayors. In anticipation of them joining us in January, I have been proposing that the mayors review committee appointments without terms every January after election. My goal is that each mayor, particularly new mayors, have an opportunity to serve. I continue to go to regular Monday supervisor meetings where the topic of conversation is always the, COVID and the recent increase in numbers and the very real concern about holidays and gatherings. And with the spikes, some states such as Oregon and Washington are implementing travel restrictions. So if you have any holiday travel, please reconsider or take extra precautions to stay safe. November 10th, I went to I wanted to attend the Planning Commission to hear the comments about the Garden Center conditional use permit. On the 11th, I attended a League of Women Voters monthly gathering on, they had a presentation on what's behind the climate change denial with Mike Clancy, a local meteorologist who worked for the Naval Research Lab, Fleet Numerical, and received the Navy's highest civilian award for his prior to his retirement. And then on the 12th, Sustainable Delray Oaks meeting. Upcoming will be a butterfly garden work day on Saturday, December 5th from 9 to 12. If you would like to help, bring your mask, gloves, rakes, and wheelbarrows. Physical distancing is a requirement. And if you haven't already, you can participate in the Earth Friendly Households program. I do believe we have, I think Louise and Kristen are part of that already. So November 13th, I attended the virtual Landwatch annual meeting titled How Will the 2020 Election Impact Sustainability in Monterey County? Representative Panetta, our new California Senator John Laird, California Assemblyman Stone, 2 of our supervisors, and a handful of our mayors spoke about the need for climate change planning, urban growth boundaries, and wise decision making. And I wanted to talk a little bit about upcoming. The December meeting has been moved up due to the holidays. And that will be a special meeting where we recognize the members rotating off the council and also welcome the new ones. So we haven't figured out the schedule yet, but I'm not sure we'll have reports. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of important meetings that I have coming up with the acting city manager and myself. Thursday, we're meeting with the Monterey Regional Parks District to discuss their new parcel off of South Boundary. Tuesday, December 1st, I'm meeting with CalAm to receive an update on their newly submitted California Coastal Commission permit. On Wednesday, December 2nd, will be the next sign ordinance meeting. And Dennis mentioned it a little earlier, December 8th at 10 a.m., we will have the Finance Committee meeting to be updated on financial year 2019-2020 audit. The Financial Committee meetings will now be noticed and open to the public, so take a look for that. And then lastly, we will be filling 1 Planning Commission spot in January, 3 more in the spring. And as Acting City Manager mentioned, we'll also be filling the Police Advisory Committee. I would love to have that happen in January. So if you're interested in serving your community in any of these ways, keep an eye out for the applications. They'll go on social media as well as the website, and we'll try and get those out as broadly as possible. So I hope you'll consider joining us. So on that, I just want to mention the correspondence number 7, which is in the board packet. The TAMC board meeting highlights the mosquito abatement agenda and the letter that JR mentioned earlier from the Central Coast Community Energy. On that note, we'll go into closed session next, and we will be discussing existing litigation, CMPS versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, and Michelle Ball versus City of Delray Oaks. I'd like to go out to the public. Are there any comments or about either of these items? I am not seeing any hands or waves. So on that note, we will go to closed session. We move to a separate room. So for those of you that would like to stay and wait for us to come out, you're welcome. If not, we will see you on Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 at 6 o'clock. But otherwise, we will come out and report out after our closed session. All right, we're back and we're adjourning to open session, and I'd like to turn it over to our city attorney for a report out.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to both items, council was provided with an update. Direction was given, but no reportable action was taken.
All right, thank you. So our next meeting date is Tuesday, December 15th at 6 o'clock. Please make sure you come a week early. Other than that, we are adjourned. Thank you much.
Good night.
All right.
Happy
Good
Thanksgiving.
night, everybody.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right.